Salutations everyone, this is Razor giving you guys the hero balance update for the upcoming Overwatch patch. Now with this patch there's going to be changes to competitive such as no overtime, you're going to get 3 points for a tie, 10 points for a win, yada yada yada. So let's go over the big changes, the hero balances. Now in general, ultimates that consume the ultimate meter when activated will now drain the meter more quickly. It'll be 1/4 of a second instead of 1 second. And they're also reverting the recent change to reduce the size of heroes' projectiles because they thought that it had too many unintended side effects to keep in the game, at least in its current form. So it had some problems when they reduced the hitbox sizes of projectiles. So by the time they figure out how to have those problems not happen, then we're going to continue seeing these changes. So D.Va is getting not really a nerf as much as you can't exploit this anymore. So Defense Matrix, now after being activated, will begin regenerating following a 1 second delay, formerly from half a second, because they found that Defense Matrix was too efficient when tapped repeatedly instead of being held. I myself hadn't tried this, but you can definitely see why this would, be a problem and an unintended one at that. So it's not really going to be much of a change to D.Va unless you were doing this rapid tap sort of exploit. Here's a big change. Hanzo is getting a buff. His first buff, I believe he's one of the worst characters in the game right now, but after this change, who knows? So Hanzo will now experience a 30% decrease in speed while aiming. It was formerly 40%, so he's going to be a little bit slower when he's aiming. But here's the big one. Maximum projectile speed has been increased by 30%. So while he's had the potential to deal a lot of damage, they felt that he was really inconsistent, even at a medium distance. And by increasing the projectile speed, they're extending his reliable range and making it easier to land shots without having to predict and lead your shots, especially at long and even mid ranges. Mei is getting a little buff in her Blizzard ult. It will now pierce barriers, and the radius has been increased from 8 meters to 10 meters. They felt that her ult was a little bit too inconsistent and not as good as other ultimates, like hers in the defensive area. So it's been able to pierce barriers for a time now, but projectile can still be blocked. The actual robot itself can be blocked, so that's no longer going to be a thing. McCree gets a small nerf to his ult. It will now drain when you activate Deadeye 1/4 of a second period instead of displaying a 50% reduction on the ultimate meter when activated and 0% when confirmed. So it was kind of inconsistent with how other ultimates worked when they missed or what have you, got interrupted. So they're kind of making that small little change. It's not going to be very big. They're going to try to buff Mercy. Once again, the Caduceus Staff's healing beam has been increased by a healing per second of 20%. So it's 20% better healing power for your Mercy. So maybe she's going to be a little bit more competitive when it comes to how much healing power Lucio can do in comparison to her. Because even though she is the healing-centric character, she still gets out-healed by the Lucio. And they're also going to change Resurrect again. Resurrected allies will be able to move her 2.25 seconds after being rezzed, reduced from 3 seconds. So they'll be able to help out that Mercy. If your whole team gets ulted and you go into res them, they'll be able to protect you a little bit faster. So a little bit something. Here's, I think, the big storyline. The Genji nerf. Double jump no longer resets when wall climbing, so it's going to be harder for Genji to just jump, and avoid all of the things, especially on a point and staying the objective. His dash no longer deals damage to Widowmaker's Venom Mine or Junkrat's Steel Trap, and no longer bypasses Junkrat's Steel Trap. So if his Barrack Trap is right there and he dashes, he will no longer go right through it, he will get caught in the trap. Swift Strike no longer interrupts quick melee attacks, which people would exploit for a little bit of quick damage right there. And the duration of his ultimate, Dragon Blade, has been reduced from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. If you've seen Genji ults, anytime recently, you've seen man, they're getting a lot of quads in 5 minutes, and it's absolutely ridiculous because, that Swift Strike will reset, and he's very agile and powerful, kills most people in 2 strikes. So they're going to be, making his ult a little weaker and going to make him a little less jumpy. But, still a powerhouse nonetheless. Lucio is going to get a bit of a nerf to his Amp It Up speed movement. Previously, you would run 100% of the speed normally. That will now be reduced to 70%. So he has been a must pick in pretty much every lineup, and I don't think this is going to change it because he's still, the best healer until what we can see Mercy can do. But no longer will his speed boost be the huge factor that it is. Roadhog is getting somewhat of a nerf in his chain hook, but more of, it's not going to be janky as much. So now if you're hooked, and the target isn't in Roadhog's line of sight when the hook retracts and pulls your enemy in, they will be moved back to position. So let's say something moves or you get knocked while you're doing the chain and there's a wall or an obstacle in the way. No longer will the person be pulled through the wall or around the obstacle. They will now be safe, which I think is very, very good. Zenyatta is getting a nerf and a buff. So the amount of damage amplified by the target with the Orb of Discord has been decreased from 50% to 30%. So that's a pretty significant debuff to the debuff. And the Orb of Destruction, his attack, has been increased from 40 to 60%. So while they said that Zenyatta is in a far better place since the last update when they gave him just 25 more shields, the strength of Orb of Discord almost made him a mandatory pick in competitive, apparently. So they didn't change the Orb of Discord, so I don't know why now now it's broken, but they feel like it's too strong. So they're gonna nerf his Discord Orb from a 50% to a 30%. And to somewhat combat this, they're going to make his attack do 6 more damage. So I don't know if I agree with that Zenyatta change just because of the reasoning behind it. But if they said it was a must pick and it really, changed things competitive where everyone needed a Lucio and a Zenyatta because of the Discord Orb to take care of tanks or whatever, they decided that they're going to make this change to make Zenyatta weaker when it comes to his Orb of Discord. So unfortunately, he's not going to be able to heal much better, and even with the increase to his primary attack, he's still not going to do as much damage on an Orb of Discorded enemy as he did pre-patch. So I don't know how much that's going to affect the Fave Little Robot that so many people consider the worst character in the game pre-buff, but after he got 25 shields, apparently he became, overpowered. So there you have it. Those are the changes to all the characters in Overwatch thus far for this test patch that is currently in the PTR and will be released for all platforms relatively soon.